Hello, everyone, and welcome to the May astrological overview for May 2023. To all of you who have Taurus birthdays or Gemini birthdays, welcome to your season, mostly Taurus, and then at the end, we yield to the Gemini sun season. So I'm going to be going through all of the primary transits, all of the major lunations, including a lunar eclipse. I will let you know when the sun moves into Gemini. And then we are also going to go through each lunation as well as Gemini season in a little bit more detail, showing some charts. And we'll finish up with a horoscope for each rising sign. I do recommend that you read or watch the segment for your rising sign. It's going to make it a little bit more applicable and specific to your life and what's going on for you. But feel free to read for your sun as well and see how it goes. Whichever one feels best for you, whichever one works best and ends up working out the most specific to you is the one that I would read for. I don't know the fullness of your chart. I'm just going by your rising sign, giving me the best that I can understand without seeing your full chart. If you wanted to know the fullness of your chart with my help, we could do that in a consultation for sure. It would be super exciting. But for this, try your rising sign first and see how it helps. So we are going to get started going into our slideshow. And again, you'll be able to click the link in the description of this video to be able to actually get this slideshow so you can have it as a reference for the entirety of May. Okay, so let's get started with some of the highlights of May to begin. And for that, I'm going to share my screen so that you can see everything that we're going to cover firsthand. So here we go, astrology overview for May 2023. The major things we're going to think about are the lunations and the changing of the astrological or zodiacal season. That would be the lunar eclipse, which is the same as the full moon this time because it is a full moon in Scorpio. However, by declination, the sun and the moon will be just right so that the moon will be blocked out by the Earth's shadow in between them. So in this scenario, this is the moon, this is the sun, my head is the Earth, and you can see how they kind of get blocked out that way. That's how a lunar eclipse works. It's a full moon, but the declination is just so that the moon is blocked out. This time it is in Scorpio. We'll go into more detail with this in a later segment, but Scorpio is not one of the moon's favorite places to be. We do have a slight redeeming factor with this one, though, and we'll talk about that later as well. This is going to happen on May 5th. The exact time will be around 1:34 p.m. Eastern time. As far as visibility, since it's going to be during the day, I'm not sure that we will be able to see that from here. If you imagine the sun being in the sky during a full moon, the moon must be opposite, and therefore we will not be seeing that eclipse this time. Next year, though, in the United States anyway, you'll be able to see a couple eclipses, I believe. On the 19th, we have a new moon in Taurus. Now, Taurus is somewhere that the moon likes to be, and we'll look at that as well. And this is a new moon, and it is not an eclipse. The eclipse season is officially over. So this will be our first lunation post this eclipse season, and we'll be back onto feeling a little bit more maybe stability thanks to Taurus entering into our lives. And then on the 21st, the sun will move into Gemini, beginning Gemini season. So some highlights that we want to look at first are the ingresses and the stations that happen. These are the major changing of directions or changing of topics that planets will go through. And we start out on May 5th with Pluto stationing retrograde, and this will station retrograde through October. And in fact, Pluto will be retrograde through October, let me see here, 11th. That's when Pluto will station direct again. One of the interesting things that will happen during this is Pluto will actually begin at 0 degrees Aquarius, where they are now, and go back into Capricorn to the 27th degree of Capricorn. So if 0 Aquarius or backwards to 27 Capricorn is an important point in your chart, this is something that you may revisit that you've already kind of experienced before, particularly since early January when Pluto first occurred at that degree. Pluto will go back into Capricorn on June 11th, and then will station direct again in October, moving back into Aquarius another time by January of 2024. Then we have Venus entering into Cancer. So she will come out of Gemini and move into Cancer. Venus in Cancer, we're thinking about emotions and relationships, values, indulgences in Cancer, which is a little bit more emotionally driven as well, wanting to find a place where it can fit, wanting to be able to begin things and have the excitement of fresh new experiences and relationships. And so we might notice that our feelings kind of come front and center at this, where we're going to be kind of seeing them out loud a little bit more, expressing them maybe more direct and more front and center, which is kind of helpful because Venus will be retrograding, not in Cancer, but in Leo. And so what we're kind of bubbling to the surface now may actually help us understand what we're going to be using and reworking as we go through Venus's retrograde, which will begin in July or August. So we have some time to think about that, and that will occur in Leo. Then on the 15th, Mercury will station direct. So as I record this, Mercury is retrograde, like right on top of my natal Mercury. I might, and I expect that I will stutter on a couple words and things. We're going to leave that in because that is what Mercury retrograde does. And it is okay that we make certain mistakes, that we go over things again during retrograde periods. Mercury actually is the first planet to retrograde since the middle of January. We had this long period of time where all the planets were direct and it was full speed ahead. And now we've come to a halt and we are retracing some steps and we are having the ability and the space, to be honest, to breathe a little bit more. Mercury is retrograde in Taurus. So wherever Taurus is in your chart, you may have noticed that since let's see, stationed retrograde on the 21st of April. So since the 21st of April, you may have noticed some stuff happening and some stuff glitching. And you may have even noticed it beforehand as early as April 7th, when Mercury first covered the degrees that they are recovering during this retrograde. And for reference, the conclusion of that will occur May 15th. That's when the revisitation is complete, but then we cover those degrees one more time through May 31st. So for the rest of May, give yourself the opportunity to just be detail oriented, to put your eyes on your dots on your I's and crosses on your T's, and you can already see how all this is working. So give yourself a little bit of patience. Let yourself do things detail oriented, gather your resources around you, make sure you read the instructions before assembling. Those kinds of things will help you a little bit this month. And of course, check where Taurus is in your chart, not only for Mercury retrograde, but also because Jupiter is coming into Taurus for about a year-long stay the very next day. So we recover from Mercury retrograde by receiving Jupiter into Taurus on May 16th. So if Jupiter is coming into Taurus and that's an angular house for you, like on the major clock face angles, which would be the first house, the 10th house, the 7th house, or the 4th house, then you might notice some really big bonuses coming in with Jupiter. And especially if you were someone born during the day, this could be a little bit extra boost of lucky for you as well. Mars will come into Leo on the 20th. So Mars coming back into a fire sign after being in the sign of his fall. He's not extraordinarily comfortable in Cancer. They want to feel their feelings there, and that's not exactly Mars's favorite topic. So now we move into Leo, where we have fire and some other things that make Mars feel a little bit more comfortable. By traditional essential dignity, we're still not harmed, but we're not really as supported either. So it's just Mars chilling, grooving the way that Mars can go, which would be an improvement from the current status of Mars being in Cancer, where they're not exactly their most comfortable. So we might notice that Mars topics gain a little bit of support by the fact that they aren't actually being harmed or having any sort of affliction is the word I was looking for. And then on the 21st, the very next day, the sun will also move into Gemini, beginning Gemini season for all of the Gemini suns who are experiencing their solar returns in that time. Then we have a slide here where it's just some highlight transits that are going along with it. All of these I have worked into your horoscopes. So everything I'm mentioning here, all of the things that we are going over, I have already worked into the horoscope that I've written for each rising sign. So a little bit of this you don't have to really worry about because I've kind of done some of the work for you. However, if you're interested in what is the transit that's going on, I recommend feeling the day and then being like, I wonder if something's happening. Then you can use this as a reference to see if any of these more notable transits of May are occurring to sort of support and affirm whatever it is that you're feeling and experiencing. So Mercury's halfway point of their retrograde is going to be on May 1st, the same day, if you recall, that Pluto will begin their retrograde. So there's a lot of internal, possible spiritual work going on. We're reviewing how far we've come in Mercury retrograde. Again, that began on April 21st. This is the midpoint. This is the point where we see what's come before. We can maybe gain a little bit of clarity on it as Mercury conjoins with the sun in perfection. and then move forward again, maybe more consciously through the rest of Mercury retrograde, applying what we are learning and doing it on purpose rather than understanding and learning and starting new with something. The sun will conjunct Uranus in Taurus on May 9th. This is the beginning of Uranus's next cycle. That's one of the things that's most important about it. But with the sun and Uranus together, there may be a certain energy of surprise and individuality, a certain idea of really asserting your independence and awakening to who you are and what it is that you want your identity to be. And we may see this kind of theme reflected in society as well. Venus in Cancer will trine Saturn in Pisces on the 13th, giving us a little bit of support in that Venus in Cancer journey. Jupiter in Taurus will square Pluto in Aquarius as Pluto is retrograde. And so we're going to be getting some insight on how maybe we can grow as people a little bit more as we're already begun that journey with Pluto on the 1st of May. Then on the 20th, Mars will oppose. You notice that Mars comes in on the 20th. So we are at 0 degree here. So Mars comes into Leo on the 20th and at the same time will oppose Pluto. So this creates a bit of tension as Pluto is in Aquarius. And we're just seeing the what we want versus how we need to grow or versus what's best for everybody kind of coming into play. What do I want versus what needs to happen for everybody? And how do I create a balance of this? Mars and Leo then squares Jupiter and Taurus. So again, we're noticing some situations where perhaps we are wanting some certain resources, and now we understand what it is that we want, and we can understand why we want it a little bit more as well, with Mars making it very clear in Leo. And then the Sun in Gemini will square Saturn in Pisces on the 28th, giving us some insight on where we need to support ourselves a little bit more, maybe in our mental health, maybe in certain things that are obscure normally. And now we're noticing, hey, this feels a little off. I'm going to give it some attention. So those are some things to think about as we come into May with our highlighted transits. And now we are going to move into the first lunation of May, which also happens to be a lunar eclipse in Scorpio. Talking about this lunar eclipse happening on May 5th in Scorpio, we can actually see the chart right here. And this is this is something that my Scorpio dog seems to be already having opinions about. Pardon me. So what we're going to notice here is we again have this full moon situation, right? It's the sun at 14 degrees in Taurus, opposite the moon at 14 degrees of Scorpio, but we'll notice that the moon's very close to the south node. The sun is quite close to the north node. When they are within 15 degrees of the nodes, then we typically see the eclipse. So that's how we know that this is actually an eclipse occurring by the chart. Normally, of course, you'd be able to notice by the state of the sky or by checking Google if you wanted to know when the eclipses are. But when you're looking at a chart, we see that they are in close proximity, the sun and the node and the moon and the node during a new or full moon. That's how you can find an eclipse. It's super simple and really easy to track. But what we're also seeing is we have this conjunction with Uranus coming up. So it is this time of changes, time of things occurring that are surprising and a little bit unpredictable. Eclipses have that nature in and of themselves. So one of the things that I would say about an eclipse where Uranus is involved in closer proximity is kind of expect the unexpected. This is a lunar eclipse. And so this is something that, whereas a solar eclipse will affect leadership in society, the lunar eclipse is something that is more received by the people. So there might be certain movements or certain things by the people or for the people or really affecting people where we see this happening. Another thing to take note of is that this is occurring in Scorpio. Scorpio is ruled by Mars. There's a couple cool things happening here where we look at Mars to see how is this lunation going? How supported is it? Do we have any extra boosts to go along with this? What we notice is that Mars is in Cancer. And again, Mars isn't the happiest person in Cancer. Mars would prefer to be in Scorpio or would prefer to be in Aries or even in Capricorn where Mars is exalted. So those are Mars's favorite signs. And of course, Capricorn where Mars is exalted is the opposite of where Mars is right now. So we consider Mars in fall, not really having their resources, not really being where they would prefer to be with the resources to be able to support themselves. So they have to get by with a little help from their friends. And we notice there's a trine with the moon in effect here. Even though the moon is eclipsed, we also see that the moon is in Mars's sign and Mars is in the moon sign. This is called mutual reception, and it's mutual reception by trine. Typically, this would be a pretty strong support from the moon. However, the moon is also in fall, not in her favorite sign, and is being eclipsed by the sun and the earth. You can imagine the earth being in the middle here at just the right declination of these two to be able to block it out. So this is saying that where normally there's like a mutual understanding and there might be some, getting by, leaning on each other kind of things. It reminds me of like two drunk friends who are leaning on each other to be able to stumble their way home or to their drive. This is that one maybe is a little bit more inebriated than the other and needs even more support from someone who is already kind of staggering. But perhaps it's still something that is quite positive, or at least easy, because this is a trine. So the support that is available should be readily available and quick. The one thing I'm looking at here when I think, okay, where are we actually getting our support from, is actually Jupiter and Venus. Now, Venus rules Taurus, so there is some help there. And Jupiter is in another Mars sign, so he's not really lending his hand to the moon or Mars in particular. But at the same time, these two are forming a sextile aspect, creating an atmosphere of beneficence, to be honest. Jupiter and Venus, they're not bad or good where they are. Jupiter even has a little bit of triplicity working for him here. So they're doing their thing. They are there. If you're feeling a struggle, you can lean into maybe some Venus of writing out your feelings, or following an impulse that doesn't hurt anyone else, but also helps you feel like you are making progress, helps you feel inspired, helps you feel supported. And so that's something that we can think about when we're looking at what's going on along with the eclipse here. So there are some things that are going to be happening, and it's best not to manifest at this time, because if you try to do something that you want done and society is changing around you, you might find that you're working against that and that it doesn't work out the way you want it to. So you're giving yourself more frustration than you need to have. So it's a great time for witnessing what unfolds around you and noticing what messages and resources are sort of narrating the next chapter of your story. This is the final eclipse that we will experience in Scorpio, because these nodes are moving into the angle of Aries and Libra in July. So we have our final Scorpio eclipse happening now. We will have the final Taurus eclipse happening in October, and then we come into our themes of Aries and Libra. So it's also helpful to consider, what do these signs do in your chart? Where are they positioned? And how have the last 2 years really evolved for you in the areas of Scorpio and Taurus? And then what in the next 2 years might also be evolving as this yields to this? So an affirmation that I've given to be able to just help you through if it's a rough day, or if anything's going on, or you just want something to feel like an eye in the storm. We have, I have purpose and receive direction. So just knowing that if it feels out of control that day, that's actually correct. That is the day that you are not supposed to be trying to be in control. And so that is the day that it is okay to let go, that it is okay to relax, give yourself a rest day. Lord knows the moon says, yeah, that's probably a good idea. So conscious rest might be a good idea on this day. You do not have to overwork yourself. And it's also a great idea to observe and lean into your feelings and allow them to process, because they might be pretty deep at this time. All right. So next, what we're going to do is talk about the full moon, because that is the next occurring major point in the month. And allow me to correct myself. This is actually the new moon in Taurus that we will be looking at right now. However, when I've been looking for when's the next cozy up, nice transit that I can't wait to share with people, this is definitely on the list. So this is a new moon. We can see the moon and the sun together at 28 degrees and 25 minutes in Taurus. So it's just at the very end of Taurus, but we'll take it because it is the moon in her exaltation. Now, we can see that a little less than 10 degrees away, Uranus is still interacting, but we are moving away from Uranus at this point. So when the moon conjoins Uranus, perhaps a day before this, we will notice more of the effects in that case. This new moon is lightly affected by that, but pretty wide. So the effects of that are already dimming as we are moving on. And as you can tell, this is not an eclipse because it is far enough away from the node to not actually be an eclipse. Just a little astrology tip there. So what we're looking at is the moon in her exaltation. She is new, so she's not visible. She's a dark moon, but at least this gives us a container to fill. We think about a new moon as an empty vessel, and this is a vessel preparing to fill up, preparing to go back into the increasing of light with the crescent moon and moving back towards full. So this is a very incubative kind of time, a very creative space spiritually and also inspirationally, because you have this empty vessel that you can now fill. And the moon is in her exaltation in Taurus. When we look at the ruler of Taurus, Venus is over here and she's in Cancer. She does well there. She's got triplicity there. Mars also shares that. Mars is the water triplicity of the nighttime, I believe, and Venus is of the day. And Venus gets a little extra boost here, just barely. You can see there's this little line right here that shows us that Venus is in this smaller section of Cancer that she actually rules. So we imagine if Cancer is a hotel, Venus has a regular room where she would like to stay or where she stays frequently. So it is her comfort zone, even though it's away from home. So Venus in her own terms is really operating on her own terms by her own rules. So she is a little bit more supported here. I believe it was Maternus in the book Methesis from the end of the Roman Empire era that said a planet in their own terms operates as though they are in domicile. So this is something that is quite supportive. And again, the moon's happy, Venus is pretty happy. So we're noticing that this is a helpful lunation that we're looking at. And when we look at some more things going on by square, we only have this very wide square with Pluto that I wouldn't really consider. Jupiter is now squaring Pluto at this point. So we're noticing that we mentioned earlier on the earlier slides, this is a time during this new moon, perhaps we're considering a lot of change to who we are and what we want and the resources that we use to get there. Maybe we're making some plans to move forward to become the ideal version of ourselves that leads us to a comfortable life where we have everything we need to support our livelihoods. And we do that in ways that work very well for us. And it's the beginning of a journey with that. So that's something that we think about as well. And then there's nothing else really opposing it or squaring it. So that's nice to think about. Saturn is over here, but again, it's pretty wide. Saturn is actually forming a sextile aspect with Mercury on this day. So we see how they are together, sort of giving us ideas of how to support. And so they're not directly affecting the lunation, so to speak, but they are working in the background of these things also happening, sort of setting the tone of the action in the scene that is being played out by the moon. So when we think about this, great affirmation to think about is I am prepared to create abundance, because you are, and you have everything you need, and you'll be able to gather those resources. You'll be able to understand what they are and envision them a little bit more. And so it's a great time to create an actionable plan, even if it's something that seems a little bit small. If it makes you feel happy and does no harm, then allow yourself to make it happen. And so that is my recommendation for this time, as we're receiving some inspiration to begin some new tangible ventures in our lives. And they may excite us and we'll feel supported by them. So again, I'm thinking this might actually feel like a really nice day. And again, check where Taurus is in your chart, because Taurus is getting a lot of attention this month, not only by the sun and the moon and Mercury retrograde, but also Jupiter is now here and will stay for a year or so. So this gives us this extra abundance and extra feeling to go along with it. And so next we will move on to the sun tipping over a few more degrees into Gemini. So let's get into Gemini season really quickly here. Gemini season is fortunately kind of a little bit straightforward because Mercury is now moving straight forward. So what we see is the sun having just come into Gemini. This is like the birth or natal chart for Gemini season. So we are looking at this in a similar way that we would look at a natal chart for a person and saying, hey, what might happen over this period of time? And so we see that the sun in Gemini is there with the moon, which is still new. It's not quite at the 45 degrees where we would normally be able to start seeing it in the sky, the little thumbnail version of a crescent moon. So this might tell us that we're experiencing some new processes that come in during Gemini season typically being an air sign, being a mutable sign, so changeable, new ideas, fresh ideas, being able to go from one thing to another, especially when it comes to intellectual pursuits or things of that nature. Now, Gemini is ruled by Mercury. So we look to Mercury to see a little bit more of what's going on and how this might play out. Mercury is in Taurus, now direct, picking up speed. So this newness might be something where progress comes in as well, especially as Mercury, as we can see, is approaching Uranus. That'll perfect later in June. But Mercury is heading that way. We're heading towards innovation. We're heading towards surprising, activating, or awakening new things, ideas. But also, Mercury is in Taurus. Taurus deals with resources. So, what this reminds me of is a lot of what Uranus has been doing since about 2018, I believe, when Uranus came into Taurus. It's been helping us really understand where we need to upgrade our infrastructure, where we need to up level the systems that we use to support our society. So Mercury here at this time may remind us during this period, during this whole Mercury season, of ways that we can connect better, ways that we can move forward in the connections. I'm given the idea of a vehicle carrying a package, Mercury carrying the package, the mail, the commerce, the connection, the communication, and then the package being a resource from one person to another. So this reminds me of supply chains, supplies in any area of your life, especially looking at where Taurus is in your chart and where Gemini is in your chart, since the sun is highlighting that throughout this month. So we're thinking maybe as a society, we're coming into some new ideas, making some progress on how we can do better or do differently with the things, the ways that we support and supply ourselves. Now, perhaps this actually shows up in your personal life as well, particularly if you have placements in Gemini, especially if that placement happens to be your sun or your rising sign. So my recommendation for an affirmation for this month is I'm open to communicating for change and rebirth, thinking about things that are changing, because we're still seeing these connections here with the opposition now in play between Mars and Pluto, and seeing how they are now completely opposing each other almost exactly. There's a 16 here and a 22 here. So this is something where we're thinking about that tension that we talked about earlier in the presentation, and that is coming into play and really helping us throughout, well, encouraging us to pay attention to it throughout Gemini season. So it's a great time to witness your thoughts and give them expression through journaling, through letters, through words, because this is looking for action that really reflects internal transformation. It's ways to really express what it is that makes you feel unique and individual, and how you can do that in your own ways without hurting anybody else, as always, but new ways of connecting, new ideas of pursuing this kind of cause that's going on. And so now we will move into the individual horoscopes for each rising sign with all of that already incorporated. Okay, so Aries, let's jump in and see what May has in store for you. Now, I've already put some of the keywords that go along primarily with the major things that are happening in this month for you. And we're looking at the lunations and also really thinking about the ingress of Taurus. So these keywords might be the ones that really pop up for you with the affirmation of I am resourceful and supported. Because in the beginning of the month, you might notice that there are some throwbacks to some financial or legal stories that have been happening over the last 2 years or so. Legal could also be shared resources of any kind, inheritances, things like the debt and inheritance kind of theme, just resources from an outside source that end up coming to you or that you end up giving yourself. So these might have started in 2021. Think back to October and the way that that has evolved since then, and thinking about the eclipses since then in May and October in those general times and what may have been a theme already. This is something that probably is familiar and is coming to a conclusion. We might also notice that new relationships, purchases, or values related to family or home are happening here. And there might be some big changes to finances and resources as Jupiter comes in. The big changes, especially if you were born during the day, could be very positive changes. And then we think about things in the financial area, getting organized and moving forward with that Taurus energy going along with it. For the middle of the month, we come just in time for the big energy of Jupiter to come into your financial house. And this may alter the way that you handle your finances, your budget, and gives you a fresh start with that as we come into the Taurus new moon. There may be some conflicts with balancing fun and responsibility. So that's something to keep an eye on. And then at the end of the month, we carry this into receiving tangible support, focusing on your community or your communication, travel, and maybe those things are feeling a little bit restricted at this time and need some adjustment in order to support your mental health or having an open mind or something that feels more expansive for you. And that is one of the reasons we've incorporated into the affirmation of I am resourceful and I am supported. And I hope that May is a really wonderful month for you and that all of these wonderful things come to pass in ways that you can recognize and enjoy. All right, Taurus, let's dive in and see what May has in store for you. So you can find your Taurus symbol right here, along with some key themes that'll be unfolding throughout the month and a great affirmation of I am seen and appreciated by myself and others that may help really guide you as these eclipses happen in your seventh house and the new moon happens in your first house and Jupiter also comes into your first house. So in the beginning of the month, we might notice there's some clarity on your sense of self and your purpose and what you want to do. And then we have some big moments with relationships and partnerships with that eclipse coming in where you want to focus on communication in your relationships and possibly also your worldview. What is it that you believe that informs how you act or how you see things? Situations with identity and personal life might help you move forward and make you feel a little bit more actualized in your personal expression. Then in the middle of the month, we see some big support coming in as Jupiter comes into Taurus, giving you that recognition or confidence to be yourself and to really exist in your fullness. We might notice there's a metamorphosis of your image over this time where it becomes something that you feel you can really lean into, particularly if you are someone who was born during the day. Then we notice there are some challenges and some effort at home. Maybe you're remodeling your house or you're going through a lot of ancestral work or anything like that. Then at the end of the month, we find that you are able to sort of assert yourself within your home or your family. And this helps you work on stabilizing financial or material situations that align with your goals and vision. So again, we notice that the affirmation here is I am seen and appreciated by myself and others. And I really hope that May is an abundant time where you get all of the things you need, where you feel supported and you feel like you can express yourself to the fullest. Okay, Gemini, let's dive in and see what May has in store for you. So you can see here, we've got some key themes for you, and these are really surrounding the sixth house where that Scorpio is going to be, that Scorpio eclipse, and then the new moon in your 12th house of Taurus, as well as Jupiter coming into the 12th house. So these are some really great key words that you might notice coming up for you over the month. And then an affirmation that might be helpful is I am a spiritual being expressing in a physical world. So we see at the beginning of the month, spiritual and worldview set you up for some alignment through your daily routine. Perhaps what you do every day really begins reflecting and supporting your mental health and your spiritual views. And your health choices will really set you up for that success overall as well. So it's something to keep in mind. Then there's this potential for a sort of spiritual epiphany, or if you're going through a spiritual awakening, you're maybe up leveling in that as well. And you see that maybe there's some financial support or career efforts going on and situations with solitude and personal development helping you to find space for yourself so that you can move forward. In the middle of the month, spiritual growth into next year is coming in because Jupiter is coming into your 12th house, really expanding that area for you and creating this space where you notice growth going on in sort of a subconscious realm. And so there's change to the way of practicing and understanding the world. This is something that, because Jupiter is there, bringing some emphasis here, there's a lot of subconscious or subliminal things happening that really might expand your mind or expand the way you see the world. Daily rituals to help express and understand this new belief system and test it out may help you feel more anchored in and more in control and really pursue that curiosity that you might have right now. By the end of the month, we're focusing on self-expression as the sun moves into Gemini. And so we're asserting this new image for yourself and then really allowing others to see it in a structured and conscious approach of telling people who you are. And again, the affirmation is, I am a spiritual being expressing in a physical world. And I hope that you feel supported. I hope that you feel like you can do these things and that you can pursue any curiosity you have in a safe space, in a space that makes you feel well and supported throughout May. Okay, Cancer, let's see what May has in store for you. Now, looking at Cancer here down at the bottom, We are seeing some keywords that are associated with the fifth house and the 11th house. The fifth house is where we are noticing that eclipse happening for you. And then the new moon, as well as Jupiter, are going to be moving into your 11th house of Taurus. So these are the keywords that you might notice coming up for you this month, as well as the affirmation of I am discerning and deserving. Because we notice at the beginning of the month, you might receive some clarity on those 11th house themes of goals and aspirations and your wishes and hopes for yourself. Also, maybe some changes and clarity in your friend groups and the people that surround you. There might be some intense experiences with children, creativity, indulgence, fifth house themes of really expressing joy. We might notice that these are amplified this month. And then there might be some self appreciation and awareness of your personal needs and desires that comes into your life and that becomes a priority for you as you begin up leveling your goals and learning what is needed to become your ideal self, the person that you want to be and that you deserve to be. And then we start moving toward those goals. And this actually receives a lot of big support from friends and just luck of circumstances actually coming to support you as Jupiter does move into Taurus. And we see that this might require some evolution of your goals and some investments of your time or resources. And so we put tangible investment into future success. There may be some calculated risks that come along with this, but it's something that you feel motivated and pulled to do. And I would trust your instincts on this. And again, if you need to make a list or something to make yourself feel more comfortable, by all means, do what makes you feel comfortable making choices. By the end of the month, we see that organizing your resources to accumulate that long-term success comes into view again. There might be some belief work going along with this to allow some growth in your personal life where you can really say, this is holding me back, but not anymore. I don't need this belief anymore. I can move forward. And so again, we come to the affirmation of I am discerning and deserving. And I hope that you feel this and you believe it. And this is a great idea if you're doing belief work to allow yourself to believe those things so that you can have the most abundant and supportive May possible. Okay, Leo, let's see what May has in store for you. So what we're going to notice here is first and foremost, right at the top here, we have our keywords that go along with the fourth house and the 10th house, which is where a lot of the activity of May is going to occur for you. That eclipse is in your fourth house. Jupiter will move into the 10th house, and that new moon will also happen here. So we're noticing a lot of these keywords, things around this area of your life coming into view, and also the affirmation of I am planted where I can thrive and grow. It doesn't necessarily have to be where you're planted now. It's finding the space where you can express yourself to the fullest. Because at the beginning, we might be noticing along with these themes that you're assessing career, reputations, resources for those things. You're thinking maybe about changes to your roots, to your family, to your home. Things of that nature might be coming into play for you. And so we might be moving forward with career tasks as the focus, while of these things all also kind of settle in around it. There is this balance between them that occurs. By the middle of the month, we see big support coming in around career and reputation, especially if you're someone born during the day. But in general, it should be there as well as Jupiter comes into Taurus. We're noticing some transformation to your career, maybe starting a new process or a new cycle within your career. And so there's this intense energy around yourself and others and the relationships that go on there and how you relate to other people. You might be taking action. There might be some, again, intensity around this. And there may be a sense of conflict or of being at odds that needs to be resolved in these areas. And then by the end of the month, those potential conflicts with yourself and your career goals kind of come to the front. And we notice that your personal growth and challenges to expand your potential come into the area of your realm of being. The source of your bravery is being willing to want to move forward and to be able to achieve all of these things you know you deserve. And so there is support in this for your long-term goals and dreams, and we're beginning to get that clarity and that vision for them here. And this is why it might be a great idea to use the affirmation of I am planted where I can thrive and grow, because you want to set yourself up where you can feel comfortable and you can spread yourself out in a way that supports a structured and supported growth for the future that can stand firm. And so I hope that this month is one that is amazing for you, one that leads to powerful change, one that leads to all the things that you would like to happen as you go through this time of growth and up leveling in everything that you do. All right, Virgo, let's see what May has in store for you. We're going to pop over to the slide, and you'll notice right away that there are some key themes going on for you. These are based on your third house and your ninth house, and these are where a lot of the action of May is happening. That eclipse is going to happen in your third house, and then Jupiter and the new moon will occur in the ninth house of Taurus for you. So we notice that in the beginning of the month, there's this clarity of your worldview of, we put kind of politics, religion, higher education in this part of the chart. We can also notice things around publishing and that kind of culminating work. There's also a change to community, communication, travel, siblings, some third house applications here. So you might notice that you're changing these things as you're changing your worldview. They are coming into play as well as part of the balance. And then we move forward with this new philosophy and understanding, carrying us into the middle of the month where support increases for that as Jupiter comes into Taurus, and maybe you pursue a higher education expansion of your knowledge, or you go deeper with a certain spiritual practice, or you travel to somewhere unfamiliar and the experience is your education or is the way that you help yourself grow. This is an activation and a new cycle that helps you focus on your mental health and your physical health and allow your stress to have outlets, so that by the end of the month, we are aligning spirituality or mindset with worldview and putting that into practice, focusing on supportive relationships that forward your career goals and take you where you want to be in life. And so a great aspiration and affirmation for this is I am safe and supported in my growth and expansion. And I hope you truly feel that throughout the month of May. Okay, Libra, let's dive into May and see what it has in store for you. So what we'll notice is some keywords here surrounding the second house and the eighth house. The second house is where this eclipse is happening. And then Jupiter is going to ingress along with that new moon being in your eighth house of Taurus. So in the beginning of the month, we're noticing some clarity around shared resources, maybe some clarity around debts or things that are owed or inheritances that are coming in. This is just other people's resources and some keywords that can go along with those. So it's not really like anything to be worried or nervous about, especially since this is the closure of a 2-year story with this eclipse. So it's something that is already in process that is actually coming to a close and finding resolution. There may be changes to finances that go along with it. Career might become your focus. Support in your career might be something that you notice. And then you see this change coming to shared resources yet again that supports, and you find some support between work and tasks, what you do versus what it is that gets you there. And then that helps you to move forward with, again, support externally with that shared resource theme coming in. Again, this is Taurus happening. So by the middle of the month, Jupiter is coming into Taurus. Jupiter is benefic. So there might be a lot of support coming from this area of shared resources. Once again, an activation and a new cycle that challenges you to find friends and joy and just all the things that help you feel like you're having fun in life. And the people who support that with you. So that is something to be thinking about as we come into the middle of the month and then move into the end of the month, using your funds or whatever is available to you as far as resources to be able to support your right to joy, to be able to support your right to have fun, to do things that feel good for you and that feel supportive to your state of being as much as your livelihood. And so this is helping you work towards a deeper understanding, aligning again your routine with your world view. So this is a great time to be thinking of affirmations like I have what I need when I need it from multiple sources. Knowing that you don't have to have just one way for something to work is something that you're probably familiar with already. And I hope it's something that really does come in and support you throughout the month of May. Okay, my fellow Scorpio risings, let's see what we have in store for us in May. So you'll notice at the bottom here, we've got our Scorpio sign, and these are some keywords that might be coming up as we think about the eclipse happening in the first house, and then the new moon and Jupiter happening in the seventh house. Jupiter will be moving into the seventh house around the middle of the month. But first, we start, thanks to the eclipse and certain other aspects going on, with a certain clarity in relationships, contracts, agreements, things of the nature of the seventh house, dealing with other people. And this could lead to changes in our personal lives, changes to relationships, and support for leisure travel and learning, being able to really lean into all the things that we want to be able to grow in. And so we also find that this helps us move forward in relationships so that by the middle of the month, we get extra support with relationships as Jupiter comes into the seventh house and really makes that a big focus for the next year. And this is an activation and a new cycle that's going on. And there might be some challenges or ambition in career. And this also might, of course, activate or remind or bring to the front situations at home in or with your home life and your upbringing as we come into this dichotomy between the opposition of Pluto and Mars in the 10th and 4th axis of career and home or reputation and upbringing and those kinds of things. By the end of the month, partnerships seem to support career challenges where you can work through those together. So it's really a great idea to use teamwork at this point. And then we might use some shared resources to support creative projects by the end of the month. So an affirmation for this month is I am whole and complete and ready to work with aligned others. Not just anybody needs to be the perfect partner or the perfect co-pilot in a situation, but it will be helpful to find the people who are ready to walk a journey with you and to work things out in a way that is supportive and a win-win for everyone involved. And I hope that you find that and that we all do this month. Okay, Sagittarius, let's see what May has in store for you. So you're going to notice we've got some keywords right at the top here having to do with 12th house and 6th house themes. And that's because the eclipse is going to be occurring in your 12th house, and then that new moon in Jupiter will be moving into the 6th house. So at the beginning of the month, we're noticing there's a lot of focus on your mental health, on self-undoing, which is one of the keywords here. And that can really look like personal development. There's a lot of themes coming in between really balancing your mental health and the ability to have personal growth, personal development, and balance that with your daily choices, things at work, really allowing yourself to remove stresses or things that exert you too much so that you can make positive, healthy choices for yourself that kind of help each other out between the mental health and the physical health and how those are really connected in a mind-body sort of connection. Then we notice that there might be some support coming in from other people that really help you with this, or perhaps it's like a subscription to something that helps keep you on track. And then we end up getting to move forward with health goals and things by the middle of the month. And then as Jupiter comes in, we notice that health really becomes a focus. And hopefully this brings an extra amount of abundance and support to that area as well, so that we see changes coming between our daily routines and the way that we kind of allow ourselves to believe things, or the way that we kind of work our daily routines and hobbies into our holistic wellness. The new moon is also going to be occurring here in the area of health for you. So again, this is just a really big month for really focusing on goals that really help you lean into where you want to be as a human being holistically, how you want to feel, the work you want to do. We think about daily tasks. That's also kind of like what your day job is. So you might be noticing situations at work or with coworkers going along with this as well. And really leaning into asserting what you believe, what's important to you, and then putting that into practice in the world, letting that really expand your mind and letting yourself live the life you believe at the same time. By the end of the month, we'll notice certain connections perhaps coming in over the next month or so where they become the highlight as we come into Gemini season. And then Mars in Leo is going to help us understand again how what we believe really motivates what it is that we want to do and who we want to be, and gives us reason to do the work we do or to do the routines that we do. And then by the end of the month, we'll notice situations coming up that really illuminate for us which relationships are very supportive for us in life and which ones are perhaps not the most supportive, so that we have this idea of an affirmation of I'm expressing peace of mind in my daily life and even in interactions as we go through the month of May. And I hope that you do find the right people and find the right reasons to do the things that make you feel expressive and free to be who you are. Okay, Capricorn, let's dive into May and see what we have in store for you. So you'll notice we have some keywords going on here that are associated with the 11th house and the 5th house, because this is where a lot of the action is happening for you in your chart this month, as the eclipse is happening in your 11th house of Scorpio, and then Jupiter as well as the new moon occur in the 5th house of Taurus for you. So we're noticing that in the beginning of the month, things start really moving forward for you in the area of creativity. The fifth house also does creativity, vacation, children, recreational things, things of pure joy kind of fall into here. Gift giving is another thing that kind of falls into here. So you can see how that expression of joy becomes a major theme and is very highlighted for you with Mercury direct and with even the sun conjunct Uranus. So we see some changes and activations and really giving yourself permission to lean into these things and noticing that there is growth to be had here. There is support to be had in allowing yourself to have fun. And then by the middle of the month, Jupiter makes this even bigger. The fifth house is a big deal for you this month. So Jupiter brings it in as well as the new moon. And we also notice that there's some information coming in as well of how you can support yourself using your finances and your resources to be able to allow yourself to invest in more fun in your life or to invest in fun being a part of your priorities. And then we notice by the end of the month as well that perhaps some things happen where you're looking at the investments and then the current things or like short-term goals with finances and long-term goals with finances. So you can plot your success with that throughout the end of the month, which brings in Gemini season for us, where we start really recognizing how does fun play into our long-term goals? What do I feel like doing right now? And how important are these things to me? And how important is it for me to really balance my daily hobbies and routines with the things that support me for long-term success, those habits that compound into your holistic health, into the work that you do in your daily life, and how much does that feel supported, or how much does it feel like it's ready for change? So a great affirmation for you is I lean into joy and find those who share it with me throughout this month. And I hope that you do find those people and those things that really light you up. Okay, Aquarius, let's dive into May and see what themes are prominent for you, especially when we look at things surrounding your 10th house and 4th house axis. There we go. Because this is what's going to be lit up for a lot of the month. First by the eclipse in that 10th house, and then very much the 4th house gets a lot of attention throughout the rest of the month, thanks to the new moon and Jupiter interacting with a lot of other planets, as we mentioned in the beginning of this presentation. So at the beginning of the month, we're noticing that Mercury is going to station direct in that 4th house, already starting things moving forward in the area of family, home, maybe things around your upbringing or who nurtured you growing up. And then we come into a time with that eclipse already having highlighted the career. So changes in career might motivate you to move things forward, or perhaps do renovations or do something associated with your home life. Perhaps you move and transition to home and you have to set up an office or something of that nature where these two things kind of connect each other. Then the middle of the month brings Jupiter into your 4th house. And this sees us also expanding things at home. This might be where renovations, expansions, things happening literally in that sense, or an expansion of family, or an expansion of time with family. All of these things might be something that's a priority for you at this time, especially with the new moon beginning a new process with this and really allowing us to activate this in that way. We notice that certain relationships might come into play as you're thinking about who you are and who other people are to you. And there might be some situations where you're deciding, do I deal with certain people or do I do things on my own? When do I need partnership and when is individual more my style? By the end of the month with Gemini season, we're noticing that we're coming into a time of recognizing like who really supports what I need and my nurturing. What partnerships, what associations do that? Are there good, agreeable circumstances that I can use? Or are there some things that maybe have fulfilled their usefulness in areas of partnership, which doesn't necessarily always have to be marriage? I need to get into that as well. Clients, any other person, lawyers fall into this. When you're working with an astrologer falls into this. So it's just people you work with or people that you associate one-on-one that fall into this category. So thinking about those kinds of relationship dynamics. And then by the end of the month, we do see that maybe you're trying to figure out how you can invest a little bit more of your resources into things that you really love to do. And so all of this has led you to understanding that not only do you have a right to do the things that you feel called to, but you do what you love and you're surrounded by support, which is the affirmation, I do what I love and I am surrounded by support. And I hope that you feel that in all of its fullness this month. Okay, Pisces. So we're noticing that for you in May, these transits are really going to be lighting up your third house in particular. And the eclipse is also going to bring in some noticeable things around the ninth house in the beginning of the month. So we have some keywords here that surround third and ninth house themes for us. And just noticing that these might be things that come up and are prominent for you, especially at the beginning of the month where we have this eclipse in the ninth house, really concluding a story from the last 2 years that's been really playing along this axis as well for you, broadening your mind, changing the way you see things, transforming and evolving your worldview, which I hope has been enjoyable for the most part, since this might be something that you really like diving into. I also hope you've been caring for yourself at this time as you've been growing and allowing yourself the space to have questions, ask them, find answers, and feel supported with that. Mercury is going to station direct in your third house by the middle of the month or so. And so what you'll see is your hobbies, your routines, your community, and all of those things that have been a little bit wonky for the last few weeks will begin moving forward again. And by the middle of the month, the third house is even more supported by Jupiter, who is your chart ruler, coming in and staying in this third house. Another thing that happens in the third house is divination or spiritual practices and routines. So it's a great idea to be able to bring those into your daily life and play with them, feel them out if that's something that is a theme for you right now. We also notice that at this time, Jupiter is asking a lot by having squares with Pluto and saying, what do you believe? How does that show up in your daily life? The new moon is asking similar things. What are you doing that's new? What do you want to start? What do you feel compelled to begin at this time? And then we see that opposition with Mars and Pluto really asking for spiritual and physical balance. So this month is a very mind, body, spirit experience for you. By the end of the month, when Gemini season begins, we notice that perhaps you're ready for some comfort and you're actually just allowing yourself the ability to nurture in whatever visceral way that feels like for you. Then when the month rounds out, we have some experiences of, again, really bringing in home, self, health, spirituality, wellness of the holistic experience, noticing what's working for you, what isn't, what stays, what's ready to go, and bringing yourself into this curated life experience that you deserve to have. And so the affirmation I have for you is, I allow my world to grow and my circle to expand, the people who are supportive for you to also be there with you as well, so that you have everything that you need. And that is it for May. So we did it. We have gotten through the month. It's a big month, lots of things happening, but a lot of supportive things as well. And so if you are someone who is really excited about all of the things coming in the month and you want to go through them a little bit more, I want to remind you that I do offer consultations. We can go through all of this in person together in much more detail with your personalized chart. And you can even hire me if you'd like to be your personal astrologer and take this journey with you throughout the year whenever you need me. So I hope that you've had a positive experience with this. I hope that this was useful. Remember, you can download that really handy PowerPoint if you need it in the link below and click around to your heart's content.